Hey, Billy from Perma Pastures Farm. Are you chilling out during the winter months? If you are, you might be missing your biggest opportunity. Look, I totally understand. It's winter, you got Christmas coming on, you got New Year's, and everybody feels like you gotta chill. Maybe that's a wonderful idea, and for the most part, if you're like us and you're hustling, bustling all year long, look, I get it. You gotta take that sabbatical, you gotta take some time, you gotta do that people care that I'm really bad at. But it's also a fantastic time to get ahead of all those outdoor projects that you ordinarily would have a difficult time trying to do if it were a vegetative season. What am I talking about? You know what I'm talking about, don't you, greatest Pyrenees? What I'm getting at specifically, you can see right over here over this shoulder, you got all this stuff over there. It looks pretty, doesn't it? Yeah, well, the government brought that in. It's this Chinese silvergrass. There's a bunch of different names for it, but it's all the same thing. Unless you got water buffaloes, ain't nothing eating this thing, especially when it's mature like that, okay? Now, the benefit to me is that this stuff is basically not vegetative. Now, it is a major fire hazard, and you're seeing a part of the property you probably haven't seen before, and if you have, it's been just a tad here, tad there. Here's my issue. Got a bunch of sheep out here, they're all pregnant. They're gonna be having babies. And guess what? Those babies are gonna grow up to a certain point, at least the ones I don't cull, and they're gonna want something to eat. Well, they ain't eating that. In fact, nothing but a water buffalo, to my understanding, does. So here's the beautiful thing, is that while it isn't vegetative, I got a chance to get ahead of it. You know what else? This whole mountainside up here, everything you see up here was basically covered with it. You know, this isn't a war you win in miles, you win it in inches. And that's exactly how I've been doing it. So when we could, ran the pigs through, they did their thing back in the day. Then I ran the sheep through, they did their thing. But they're not gonna eat this stuff. In fact, it's so thick they can't even get through it. Now this stuff, this very invasive thing, and I've talked about it in a lot of the podcasts that we've talked about, it enjoys an environment that is highly compacted. It also enjoys an environment that's highly bacterial. So what can I do? I can put it in, I can basically, what I'm gonna do is what I've been doing, and that is turning this environment into something it dislikes. The people before us, they had a bunch of cows out here, they trampled the ground down. It was basically abused. So that's where I'm gonna intervene. So let me show you how I'm gonna do it, and it's gonna start right here with this weed eater. This stuff is so nasty, it's like almost like you're cutting bamboo. You go through a whole lot of string and it is slow going. But if I'm gonna have more area for my sheep to graze, I gotta reclaim this. So here's what I'm gonna do. As you can see, I got a pile of spent stuff down here. Well, it just became mulch. What you didn't see is that I even seeded ahead of it, okay? Something that when the spring rolls around, when we get through winter and spring rolls around, it's gonna outcompete this stuff at first. Now, in addition to that, I'm gonna add one more thing to it, and then we'll move on to the other thing that you can be doing to get ahead of all the things that are gonna come back waiting on you in the spring. Now, chopping all that down, putting all that carbon in the soil is obviously a benefit. It is going to go a long way into making it less bacterial and more fungal. But you know what's really my unfair advantage, as Greg Judy calls it? What you see right here. This is compost extract that I made out of my highly fungal compost. In fact, I'm gonna give it a lunchbox on the way out. We'll put it in these buckets. These buckets will go in the tub, and then we'll basically sprinkle this stuff all along the top of this up here, okay? That is giving it a fungal advantage. So if I did nothing else, but put down that carbon and increase the fungal layer, which is going to be enormous here in a minute, that stuff is less likely to come back. And then I'm getting a balance of a pasture system that I want, which is about 50-50 fungal and bacteria. But right now I'm gonna hit it super fungal just to get rid of that stuff so it doesn't want to come back. Let's talk about some other things you can be doing to get ahead during the winter months. Think about some of those growing mediums you might be using. Like right here is a couple of the comfrey beds we have. And what do you see on top of it? Straw. I mean, it's good. It was probably pulling up to here, but it's worked down a little bit. Well, through the winter, this is one of the best times to get the advantage of that microbial response to all the snow you may get. Now, granted, I'm out here in a t-shirt in the middle of winter, or at least the beginning of winter, And, you know, you got to love, first of all, living in a place where you wear a t-shirt in summer. And then a lot of days throughout the winter, you can also wear a t-shirt, but I digress. Point being is if you're not growing anything, if you don't have a cover crop in there, if you don't have anything growing in there, cover it up. Use some carbon. Feed those microbes and protect them that are underneath, because guess what they don't like? Nature does not like to be naked. Despite a lot of the naked gardeners out there, I dig it. But you want to cover it up. Put some sort of carbon source down. We got straw down here that has not been sprayed, and more than likely, I'm going to double the amount that's currently here. Here's one thing you can do. Let me show you another little way we get ahead in winter. When you put in something like a food forest or an orchard, we just happen to be in the orchard space right here. Back there is some perennial kale. And this is the time where I love to absolutely spring forward. Because like I said, whenever you get snow, which we will eventually, that's when you have serious breakdown and all the wonderful things that happen with microorganisms. So I collect this cardboard and I overlap it. It could be, 3-4 deep sometimes the way I do it. I want to make sure I'm missing my comfrey, so I leave little holes in here for that. So if you got something there you don't want to cover, you want to be real mindful of it. Now, we've had all this grass basically come in and kind of get a foothold in some areas where I don't necessarily want it. So I am going to take it back. And plus, at the same time, this is a food forest. An orchard. I want this thing to be as fungal as possible. Well, you know what helps that out? Check it out. These wood chips. And I got a lot of them. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. In fact, let's take a little field trip here, and you can kind of see what I've already done. We got the giant mulch rings. Let's walk down here a little bit. You can see where the cardboard basically ends and where I'm going to absolutely take it. So you can see where I stopped here. And folks, it doesn't have to happen all overnight. I basically, whenever I have a pocket of, let's say, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, there's always something to do on a farm. That's when I basically say, okay, let me see what I got here and let me take it down. Like I said, you don't win this war, just like the war up there. You don't win it in miles, you win it in inches. And so in the back of my truck right here, you can see what I got. Got a lot of wood chips that I get from the local college. And then I pick up the cardboard out of dumpsters. So, you know what? Helping the environment, all at the same time helping ourselves. That's what I'm talking about. So all I got to do at this point is spread it out, but you don't want to be, I have a tendency sometimes to get impatient. And next thing you know, I'm covering up something Michelle is wanting to keep. So be cautious of that. So things like over here, I know you can't see it, but the comfrey's basically died back a little bit. Even if you manage to cover that up a little bit, it still pops through there if it just has even the slightest ray of hope. So anyway, it'll work its way through. Here's another little area too, where I'm just leaving little pockets for the things I don't necessarily want to cover up. See, here's the beauty of all this, y'all, is that normally, look, I know we all need to lay back a little bit and get a little bit of rest. But for me, it doesn't make sense to just take the whole winter off when I know, just like my son, William, on his channel, and we'll link it down below, just like he's able at this time to reclaim a site that had been basically neglected for 5 years, is the same exact principle that we're using here. So yeah, you want to take that time, and besides, you're only going to work so long anyway when the sun's low in the sky and you have very little light to do anything. So you can take this time to reclaim all that ground that you can't even think about messing with when spring is on, and definitely not in the summer. But the beautiful thing is, not only am I getting all this done, not only am I creating a fantastic environment for all the things that want to grow here, I'm actually gaining a little bit at that time of year where most of us are kind of thinking, we'll just kind of chill a little bit. You can do a little bit of both. Just, balance is key, which admittedly, it's not my best quality. But here we are, y'all. Think about this and all the other projects that you could be doing that you don't have to do it all overnight, like doing the side of that hill. I'm gaining a little bit. And then later on, when I have about 30 minutes or more of time, I go out there and gain a little bit more. Before you know it, the entire project is done. and then you've created for yourself when spring rolls around, options that otherwise you wouldn't have. So think about those wonderful things. All right, y'all, hopefully this has been a blessing for you. If you need any of the comfrey I talked about, we still got some at the website. You can still plant it if you can still work the soil. Any of that stuff, rice knives, any of the things we have like bone sauce, world's best deer repellent, we got it at the website. Don't forget to check out our podcast. And if you want additional awesome information, we got that on Patreon as well. All right, y'all, hopefully it was a blessing to you. And happy Christmas and Merry New Year. We'll see you next time.